All
Mm.
right, I think recording has started. Okay, wonderful. So to start this presentation, I'm just going to start off by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I am presenting on today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, paying deep respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So hi, and welcome to this presentation. Thank you to the students who attended, and for those who are listening back to the recording, also welcome. This is going to be a presentation going through some essential resources we have in the library, particularly relevant to the BIOW, I think it's 311 course code, the wellness students. So I'm going to start on the library homepage. If you have landed on this one before, amazing. If not, there is a tab in your LMS that says library. It's just in that little drop down under library homepage, I think it is. Otherwise, you can always just Google Endeavour Library and you will come across this page as well. So from our landing page up the top here, we have our search bar. So you can search for your readings up in here. We have new books and resources that are coming into the library in the center bar. So all of these are new books. And then on the right hand side, we have our tweets. So anything that's new or, you know, sometimes if like a database has gone down or something like that, would make sure there's like a little tweet up in the background, which is going to, yeah, just give you sort of like immediate things that are happening in the library as well. And then on the left-hand side, we have all of our links. So webinars, a little student essentials guide, databases, which I'm going to be going into this list and giving you a little bit of a breakdown on later in this presentation, our library guides, our referencing guide, some study skills guides, which again, I'll show you a little bit later, library videos, which hopefully this video will be sitting in, and some of our frequently asked questions. So to start, I'm going to jump into the library guides tab on this page. So you'll see if I click on library guides, we have a list of all of the different modalities and then a couple of extra subjects. So for example, we've got nutrition, naturopathy, massage, also extra things like Zotero, which is a reference manager. So all of the content in here is content that the library controls, and we have built specifically for Endeavour students. So the guide that I'm going to be pointing out and going into today is actually the naturopathy guide. And then in the naturopathy guide, there is a tab called wellness. I'm going to click on wellness and that's going to open up into this page here. So all of the content on this guide has been built with this course code in mind. All of these are books. So there's a mixture of both ebooks and print books in this lineup here. So for example, this very first one here, if I click on the Oxford Handbook of Positive Psychology, it will ask you for your student login. This is exactly the same login as your LMS. So your student number and whatever password your LMS password is. And then after you hit that, it should just take you straight through to the resource. I'm sorry if it takes a little bit of time. I think sometimes presenting slows the pages down a bit. Once I'm in here, this is the landing page for the full access of this ebook. And if I scroll down, I can see all of the different chapters. You can do little jump outs. And then if you click on one of the chapters, it will automatically open up into the full text access of that resource. Again, sorry if it's taking a second, but let's just, yeah. So for example, we're at chapter 13. All of the chapter content is through here and you can always navigate through the book on the left-hand side. So that's how we get into our ebooks. Super, super easy. As long as you know your password, honestly, that's the hardest part. And then for print books, so for example, this Concepts in Health and Wellness is only available in a print book. Unfortunately, we physically weren't able to buy one that's an e-resource in the library. In that case, if it's a print book, it will open up to the catalog holding. And if you scroll down, it will show you where all of the books are held. So these are across all campuses, where they're sitting out on the shelf and what kind of resource they are. As long as there's not, I can see the one that I have in Perth campus here has been checked out. If there's no checkout notice here, it means that it should be sitting on the shelf. So we're looking for the 7-day loan copies. So for example, there's a couple in Gold Coast, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're looking for a print version of that, that's how you navigate to those pages. And again, so if you scroll through. I've tried to put as many ebooks in there as possible because obviously it's a lot easier to just click on it and immediately have the resource, but sometimes, unfortunately, like I said, they don't exist for us to buy, in which case it'll open up to the catalog holding and you can find them on your campus. Underneath that, we've got some relevant journals. So these are just journal titles that really resonated with this wellness course. So again, just a simple click on and it should open up into the full journal listing of these ones. And then underneath we have some videos. So I'm going to be talking a lot, going through a lot of stuff in this presentation. A lot of the stuff we have already covered in videos as well. For example, the search strategy that I'm going to be using, the document and the way that I'm going to be searching it in our databases. We have a video on exactly what I'm going to be talking about here, planning your search, a little video on evaluating sources. So when you are doing your research, you can cast a bit more of a critical eye over the content that you're actually like using for your research. We have an introduction to plagiarism and referencing. This is like a basics APA 7 referencing. And then also a how to reference tables and figures. I know for this course, there is a poster assignment at the very end, in which case a figure count, like a figures encapsulate images, photographs, drawings, etc. It does take a little bit more to reference those kinds of sources, in which case we have an entirely dedicated video on how to do that and also lots of resources in the guide. So all of these, again, are sort of cherry picked to be relevant for this class. And then at the bottom, we've just got some helpful links. So the APA 7 website, which I will be showing / sort of using as we go through this presentation, is available here. The document that I'm going to be using to plan my search is this one right here. We have the study skills guide and a reflective writing guide. I know for the first assessment of this assignment, it's a reflective writing. If I click on this, it will open up into a little guideline of how to structure reflective writing, what to discuss, etc. And then in this study skills guide, if you find that document helpful, we do have a number of them which cover on all like a range of assignments. So in that little study skills guide, there's heaps of really important information to sort of give you the skills you need as students, including writing assignments. In writing assignments, there's again that document to the reflective writing, but like I said, we also have little guides on report writing, essay writing, literature reviews, etc. So covers a lot of the sort of building blocks of assignment writing as well. And then the last little link here is our database list, which I will show you a little bit later. So really this presentation, I'm going to be going through sort of like starting our search, like conceptualizing what we want our research to be on, conducting that research, finding an article that is going to be relevant, and then how to reference that. So to start off with, I'm going to open up the little plan your search document. It opens up into this. The reader online won't let me edit it, but if you open it in your desktop app, it will open just in like a Word document, and then you can actually type in here. So I have one that I have prepared earlier. So this is our example search that I'm going to be conducting today. This is just a random topic that I came up with. It is probably not super well-fitting for wellness. However, the concepts and the processes that I'm going to be going through apply to any kind of research. So again, this is just an example search, but the skills, the processes, and the way to use the database is the same regardless of what you're searching. So it's definitely applicable, but yeah, again, this is just sort of like an example that I came up with. So we have our assignment question. My assignment question is aloe effective at treating acne. This is a pretty like standard, simple research topic, nothing too tricky. So the first thing that we do when we have our question conceptualized is to figure out what are the main concepts of our question. So what are the essential pieces of information that we need to be searching with? Because when we do database searching, it searches more than It's keyword search based essentially. So what I could do is I could throw this question into Google and Google would bring me back some kind of answer. Databases that search for primary literature and journal articles work a little bit differently where they're very, very keyword based and keyword sensitive. So what we want to be doing is pulling out the essential keywords from this initial question. Because if I threw this into a database, it would search every single word individually, including like the is, the at, effective as a keyword rather than just like the little joining words they actually are. So from this question, my two main concepts are aloe and acne. You can have as many concepts as you want. You know, it could be how is aloe effective at treating acne in teenagers or in young adults, in which case we would have another concept. But essentially, we're trying to boil it down to the bare minimum, the really essential concepts that are at the base of our question. From here, now that we've figured out our main concepts, we're going to put them into this little table here. So we have our two concepts in our keyword 1 and keyword 2. Like I said, you can have as many keywords as you want, but just know that the bigger your concepts, like the more keywords you have, the more specific your search will be. And it may be a little bit more difficult to find articles that encapsulate all of that. So simpler obviously means broader, more complex means a little bit smaller. From here, now that we have our keys concepts down, our keywords in our table, we want to think about synonyms of those words. So like I said, we're thinking about keywords, we're thinking about what's going to hit in a database. So I've got aloe vera, and then some scientific names for this plant. And then for acne, I have acne vulgaris, which is a scientific name. I also was just sort of like thinking, I also have pimples and zits as extra sort of synonyms. Technically, yes, these are synonyms for acne. However, I'm not going to use them in my search because thinking about the context that I'm searching, which is scientific papers are always going to be using either acne or acne vulgaris. They're going to be using the scientific language. Pimples and zits are probably a little bit too like common and too simple to be searching with in our database. So you can come up with as many keywords as you want, as many synonyms as you can think of, and then you can sort of cherry pick the ones that you think are going to be the most relevant for the kind of search that you're doing. So we're searching in scientific papers, like I said, so we want to keep it in that sort of scientific realm. If I was searching traditional sources, I'd maybe think of different language that would hit in those kinds of resources. So, you know, words that would have been used 100 years ago to describe similar conditions, etc. So it's worth having a little think about where you're searching and what exactly you're trying to come up with when you're thinking about these synonyms. So now that I've sort of built this search, and like I said, this would probably apply to most of the assignments that you do at Endeavour. We can start putting them into a database. So I'm actually going to go back to my wellness library guide, and then I'm going to hit library databases. There is also a link to this through our library homepage. Databases here. I've just put it all in one spot for you in this guide, just so yeah, it's all there. If I click on this one, it's going to open up a very long list of databases. So the library subscribes to 54 different databases, and this is paid access stuff. So stuff that you can't just find on the web. A lot of the time, I'll get students that have been maybe messing around in Google Scholar, which like is also a fine place to start, and they'll have an article and they're like, this is perfect, but I can't find the full text free online. Do we have it? And I'll throw it into one of our library databases. And more often than not, we've actually paid for the article and you can access the full text through here. This can be a little bit overwhelming when you look at this massive list of databases. But we do have some filters up the top that can be a little bit, that can sort of filter down to exactly what we're looking for. And also looking at the popular databases on the right-hand side are a good indication of places to start. So the database that I'm going to be searching in today is Discovery Search, a broad general search engine best suited for basic keyword searches hosted by EBSCO. So the content in here, like I said, is keyword based. This is also the largest database that we subscribe to. It searches a couple of other databases. They sort of can link into EBSCO. So it's a really good place to start because it's sort of like the place with the most. So you have the more chance of actually finding what you're after. It opens up into this basic search. I'm going to click on advanced search, and that's going to open up a page here with our advanced search little boxes up the top. And then literally all I'm going to do is go back to my keywords, and then I'm going to put all of these words that I want to use in one search box and all of these in the other. So I'm going to start with aloe. I think it might come up with them. So I ran this search as a practice yesterday, but really all I'm doing is putting in each keyword with or in between, which you can see from our keyword little table. We have aloe or aloe vera or et cetera, et cetera. I'm just replicating that in this box exactly. If I have a phrase, so for example, aloe vera is a phrase, 2 words that I want to search together, I'm going to put them in quote marks. Because like I said, the database is really just looking at these words and pulling up content that fits them. If I want something searched together in a phrase, I put them in quote marks, and that's just telling the database that I want this searched together rather than individually. And I'm connecting all of these searches with or. I always put them in capitals because in my brain it just makes a little bit more sense. I can sort of like see the ors, and that way I can sort of track my keywords in between them, but you don't have to. Or means that these are interchangeable. So I don't mind which one of these appear as long as one of them does. And then in our next box, we're connecting with and. So if I do this little drop down, you can sort of see these are the commands that the database listens to. Or means it's interchangeable, and means it's grouped together, and not means it's excluded. I would recommend being careful with the not function just because sometimes it can be a little bit too severe. And even if an article sort of like mentions, aloe vera as opposed to something, and if I, take that second keyword out, it's also going to remove those articles as well. So definitely maybe play around with them at the end if you're finding your research is getting pulled in a direction that you don't really want. You can always use that not function, but do use it sparingly. I mostly just use the and the or functions. So we have all of our first table keywords in our first box, and then connected with and, I'm going to put in acne or acne vulgaris. So you can see I've got this second keyword connected with and then connected with or. And again, because I want acne vulgaris to be searched as a phrase, I've got them in quote marks. The last thing I'm going to do before I actually hit my big green search button is I'm going to limit to full text articles down here. We've got a little full text. I'm going to click that. Which is essentially just going to get rid of all of the content that maybe is just an abstract or like a preview or something like that. It's always the perfect article that we don't, it's always the one that is perfect that we don't have full text access to. Hitting that little filter should remove all of those. Sometimes it's not perfect. There's always one that sneaks through, but 99% of them have been removed now. And then I'm going to hit scholarly peer-reviewed journals as well. If a journal has been scholarly peer-reviewed, it just means that when the article was being published, the journal actually gave it to another person that studies in that field and got them to review it. So the article has a little bit more of like a quality check over it. It's it makes sense in terms of the body of knowledge that is already known about that subject. So we've got those 2 clicked. All of our keywords are in our search boxes, and then I'm going to hit search. From our search little string up here, so you can see this is what the search actually looks like. It looks complicated, but it really is just all of our keywords connected together in different brackets. We've limited to full text and scholarly peer-reviewed, and we have 793 results. So these are the results set down here. We can start having a look at the titles and seeing if it's going in the right direction. I can see that it looks like we are moving in the right direction. But I'm going to filter a little bit more before I start paying too much attention to these. So I'm doing a little check. Yeah, this looks like we're going in the right direction. I'm going to filter a little bit more before I start really critically looking at these result sets. The next thing I'm going to do, so if you forget to do full text and you forget to filter by scholarly peer review, don't stress. You can always do it on this little left-hand side here. We've got limiters, full text, scholarly peer reviewed. The next thing I'm going to filter by is date. Usually the last 10 years is a good place to start. Sometimes assignments will specify it has to be in the last 5 years, 10 years. 10 years is a really good just general rule to go by. And I know a lot of academics sort of have that rule in mind as well, and will be looking for stuff that's current when they're marking your assignments. And immediately you can see how that's dropped down our results set from 793 to 554 results. So we've sort of pulled away some of the older content because I could see there was stuff in there from the 80s, which I think we've probably moved forward a little bit in medicine since then. Source type, we have academic journals. We have 2 magazines. I'm just going to hit academic journals to get rid of those 2 magazine entries. They're definitely not going to be scientific research, so not necessary to keep in our search. And again, that's just taken away a couple of results. And then the last thing I'm going to filter by before I really start having a look at these articles is subject. So you can see underneath each of these articles, we have this little subject bit and we have keywords listed through here. The database, like I said, it isn't smart. It doesn't really know what we're after. It's just looking at our search string and our filters and pulling up everything it can that fits that criteria. Subject filtering gives a little bit more context to your search. So I'm going to hit on the left-hand side here, subject. And it's going to drop down these little boxes here. I'm just going to hit show more so I can show you the full list. So these are all of the articles for the article set that we have. All of these are possible subject keywords that we could filter by. These are all connected with and. So the more of these that I click, the smaller my result set is going to be. So if I click all of them, it's only going to bring me up an article that has all of those keywords in their subject, which probably doesn't exist. So I would recommend maybe starting with 1 or 2. You can sort of see how many articles have these keywords. I'm just going to hit maybe acne vulgaris. Yeah, maybe, or maybe aloe. I'm just going to hit acne vulgaris to start and then update my result set and see how many that brings into my search. Yeah, so we're down from 554 articles to 35. What I want is sort of a result set between 50 and 100. That's usually a good place to start. So that's maybe a little bit small, but still I'm pretty happy with that. I feel like those articles would be pretty relevant to the topic that I'm actually searching. If you're finding that your search is way too broad and you're not able to sort of like get down to that result set enough, there's like a lot of articles that sort of just like cluttering up your search. You can also change where you search these keywords. So at the moment, these are being searched throughout anything that the database has access to. So the full text of the article, the abstract, the title, everything like the subject filters, everything that it can. You can also limit this to only search in the abstract. So if this was a really broad topic and I was like, you know what, I still have like 5,000 results and I'm not getting anywhere. I can change this to only search in the abstract, which would make the results even smaller because we're not searching so many spaces. But I'm pretty happy with how this is looking. The next thing I'm going to do is change my page options to detailed and then hit apply. So at the moment, it's just giving me the little brief introduction to these papers. If I hit that detailed view, it also gives us the little abstracts for each of these papers as well. So it's a really good way to sort of, rather than having to click into each of them and figure out if this is actually relevant or not, usually having a skim of the abstract can give us a good idea of what the content is actually about and save you a little bit of time So for example, this very first article that I have here, it's looking very, very positive. It's got both of our keywords in the title. It's also a randomized double-blind prospective trial. So for primary research, what we're looking for primary research is research that's conducted as close to the actual testing as possible. So looking at this abstract, I can see that they've done a little background. They had an objective. They actually wanted to, they had a question they wanted to answer. They decided how they were going to test that. They tested it, and then they generated results. And that means that this is a primary piece of literature. You can see in the abstract, there's data that's being generated through here. They've drawn conclusions from it. There was materials and methods that they used to actually test it. So this is a primary journal article. If I click into this one, it's going to give me the rest of the referencing information. So this is all of the referencing information. You can see that abstract here. It should also have something on this. So sometimes it should actually have the PDF available on this left-hand side and also some more options here. Looks like it just hasn't loaded properly. That's fine. If it's skipped a little bit, just hit refresh. Then yeah, there we go. All I had to do was refresh the page and those options are back here. So on the left-hand side, we have a full text PDF. Sometimes you might have to click on Publication Finder. If there's no PDF available here, it just means that this is sitting in a different database. It's not in EBSCO, it might be in Science Direct or somewhere else, in which case we just hit Publication Finder and then it will link out to where that database is hosted. But luckily, this one is in EBSCO, so we have the PDF available right here. And all I have to do is click on that one, and then we have the full text of the article here. And from here, then I would go through, I'd read the content, the introduction, have a look, and you'd see, yes, definitely they talked about the materials and methods they were using, the formulas, they designed the study, they talked about the population they tested it on, and you can see they actually generated data. Yep, there's definitely results here. And then they drew conclusions from it. Oh yeah, lots of data. Yeah, and then they drew conclusions of it here. The results of this trial demonstrate that in combination of TR, aloe vera was well tolerated, and combination, yeah, so it actually, yeah, they found that it was effective, which is amazing. Okay, great. If I wanted to, so let's say, cool, I found this for my assignment, I definitely want to use it. I want to cite it in my assignment. I'm just going to hit back to take me to this reference page again. If I want to cite it, on the right-hand side here, there's a little button that says Cite. If I hit that, it automatically generates references. Again, this is just a database grabbing all of the information that has been embedded into here and smushing it together to make a journal article reference. Make sure we're scrolling down to find APA 7. And then this is our generated APA 7 reference here. So from here, I'm going to literally just control copy, and then I'm going to add it to a reference list. So this is the reference list that I'm building for this imaginary assignment. I've got a book here, and I also use another library database. We want our reference list to be in alphabetical order. So looking at this, I can see Hajhedari is the first author name. So we want that in between these two. So I'm just going to enter that and paste that right in there. You can see that it moves over with some weird formatting stuff. You can always get rid of that with that option here, keep text only. Or if for whatever reason this little pop-up doesn't happen, that's fine. All we have to do is highlight the reference, and then up the top here in Word, there's a little A and like an eraser, and it says clear all formatting, and that will get rid of all of that like extra kind of database junk around it. We do need to double check this before we submit it before we submit our assignment though. And to do so, I'm going to go back to my wellness guide, and I'm going to hit APA 7 website.
Okay.
If you don't have the wellness guide open, again, this APA website is available on the library homepage under referencing. So it all sort of interconnects, but we've just tried to make it as intuitive as we can to sort of get you in the right direction. And this opens out to our referencing guide. So we have a lot of information about referencing here. If you like a print copy, we also have like the print version of the APA guidelines. I really like using the web version because I feel like it's quite intuitive. So looking at the left-hand side, this is a reference list entry, and this is a reference for a journal article. So I'm going to click on reference list journal article, and that's going to bring up how to reference this journal article with an example down here. So all I have to do is make sure that my example, my reference here matches the formatting of the reference here and like the little breakdown here. So we can see we've got our authors listed here. Authors,
yeah.
Yep. Authors, and then with a little ampersand between the second last and the last author names. So that's all fine. We have the date in brackets after the author names, which correlates here. Yep, we want date in brackets with a full stop. Date in brackets with a full stop. We next have the title of the article. The title of the article needs to be in sentence case. So that means that this is all sort of like lowercase letters here. Aloe is the name of the plant, so we can keep the aloe as capital. Just checking through here to make sure this is looking good. It's looking all in sentence case. Oh, but I've just noticed that this little subtitle here, so subtitles need to be capitalized to fit that sentence case. So I'm just going to change that so it's a capital. Double check the rest is all in lowercase. Amazing. Next, we move on to the title of the journal. So looking at this, we have the title of the journal and the volume in italics. Because I took away the formatting to sort of like clear out that database stuff, means that this journal of dermatological treatment and this volume number need to be in italics. So I'm going to update that to italics. You can see we've got the volume in italics, followed by the issue in brackets, a comma, a page range, and then the DOI. And you can see from this example here, the DOI is a live link. So I'm just going to double check that. Volume, issue, comma, page range. Then we have the link here. And all I'm going to do is just hit space to make that live. Then, yeah, live. And then that's, I think, everything that I need to update for the actual content. The last thing I want to change is the formatting. So you can see that both of these examples here, this has got a hanging indent and this has got a hanging indent. So reference lists need to be double spaced and with a hanging indent. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight all of my references so far. Normally I would do this sort of at the end of my assignment. So I'd have maybe, however many references I've used to build my assignment. And then I'm going to go up to the paragraph options up the top here, hit paragraph. I don't want to add spaces between paragraphs of the same style. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure the line spacing is double. And I'm going to make sure that the special here, this little indentation is in a hanging. So that's what I want to, yep, that's everything I want to change. Then if I hit OK, that changes the formatting of my assignment. So you can see nice and clearly we've got each reference listed and then we have the hanging indent in between them, so they're nice and easy to spot. They're all in alphabetical order and they all are correlating to the formatting specified in our APA guide. So that's how I would do the end text reference, but what about actually using it in the assignment? Rolling up, this is my very thorough and well-written assignment so far. So for I've used these other two resources and I've referenced both of them, which I've highlighted in brackets here. So what I've done is I've actually paraphrased. So for the majority of your assignments, you want to be paraphrasing your content rather than direct quoting. Paraphrasing is essentially writing the information in your own words. The majority of your assignments will you be writing information that you've learned in your own words. It's definitely So there are a few reasons why this is a good thing. Firstly, is it means that you aren't at risk of accidentally plagiarizing anything. So if everything is written in your own words and isn't, the same as the original source, it means you're not plagiarizing that content. It also means that your lecturers and your markers can see that not only were you able to do the research, so you've conducted a search like I've just done, you've used books through the library, databases in the library, whatever, you've actually managed to do the research, find the information and understand it enough to write it in your own words and explain it in your own words, which is essentially you learning the content, which is sort of the point of studying. So you can see here, I've done that with this first sentence. Historically, the use of aloe in medicine can be traced back as far as Mesopotamia and has been used across the globe as a treatment for skin irritations and conditions for hundreds of years. This is the book that I got that reference from, which you can see I've got listed here. So for our in-text reference, again, to double check that I've got that correct, I'm going to go back to the APA website. I'm going to go to in-text citations. So we've got in-text citations here. So our reference center is here, anything for in-text here. And I can see from this, we have Braun and Cohen, 2 authors. So I'm going to go in-text citation, 2 authors, click on that one, and then it will give me, if my page loads, yeah, it'll give me the correct way to cite 2 authors with some examples underneath. So there are 2 ways that you can cite in your assignments, like the body of your assignments. And every time the information that we need to be capturing are the author names and the date of publication. You can see here we've got author names and date of publication. This example that I have here, I have included a parenthetical citation, which basically just means it's in brackets at the end, which we've got another example here. So we have both of the author names together, connected with an ampersand, a comma, and then the year all together in brackets at the end of the sentence that I've paraphrased. So yeah, cool, I paraphrased this. It looks nothing like the original source. And then I've got both of my author names listed here, connected with an ampersand, a comma, and the date of publication. Perfect. Then that's great. All I need to do for that citation, I've referenced it properly in my reference list at the end, we're golden. So everything that you cite in text needs to be in your reference list, and everything in your reference list needs to be used in text. Your markers will know and be able to tell if you're just throwing in citations for the sake of like bulking up and making it look like you've done more research. I promise you that they have marked these assignments before. They're very, very up to speed with the content, and they will be able to tell if this is, not really aligning. So just everything in the in-text, in the end text, everything in the end text needs to be referenced in the in-text. Then I go on to continue that. As outlined by the Therapeutic Research Center 2022, there is evidence in contemporary medicine to suggest that aloe gel may be effective in reducing symptoms of acne. Again, I've paraphrased that information. It's written in my own words, and I want to include the source where I got it from, which was this one here. So this is the Therapeutic Research Center. This is an organization that actually authored the content. That's totally fine. Sometimes you'll have individual authors. Sometimes a company or an organization might be the authors of the content, in which case we can go back to our APA guide here. Organizations as an author. There's a little tab on how to do it. We have organization and the year of publication, and another example here. So for this reference, I've actually written it as a narrative citation. So you can either work it into the sentence like I have here. So I've got my author names and the date of publication in brackets afterwards. That's fine. If I wanted to, I could just include this in brackets at the end, or vice versa. You can absolutely mix and match between the different styles of referencing in text. I also find that it sort of helps break up your writing a little bit as you get more confident with academic writing to use both. But if you just want to use little brackets at the end, that's fine. If you want to use the other, that's also fine. No one is more correct than the other. They're just 2 different ways that you can really work them into your content. So that's fine. All of that is referenced correctly. We've got, again, the authors and the date of publication of the pieces of information we're capturing here. if I wanted to reference that next assignment, sorry, that next article, if I wanted to, so I'm moving on with my assignment, I want to reference that. There are two ways that I can reference it. The first way is like this. I can work it into the sentence. So looking at my reference here, I can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different authors. So then I go back to my APA website. I have 3 or more authors. So I'm going to hit that tab and see how to reference that. So one author is very simple. You just include the one author name and date of publication. 2 authors, you include both. 3 or more, there's a little special thing we call et al. And that essentially means there are more author names in here, but it is too clunky to include them all, / we don't have the word count for that. So et al. Essentially denotes that there are more authors in here. See the end text reference list for the full list. So in this case, if I wanted to do a narrative citation, I include the first author name, followed by et al. And a full stop, and then the date of publication. So like I have, here. This is our reference here. So Hajj Hedari et al. And then 2014 in brackets, making sure that reflects what's in our APA guide. Author et al. Year of publication in brackets, amazing. And then I go on to paraphrase the information here. Alternatively, or we can also reference it with our parenthetical citation like this. Again, essentially this is the same paraphrase, just moved around slightly differently with the author names in brackets at the end of the sentence. Again, the first author name, et al., a full stop and a comma, and the date of publication. So we're collecting the same pieces of information, we're just displaying them in a slightly different way, and it is entirely up to you how to do that, whatever feels best, whatever makes the most sense and flows in your assignment. As you go through your studies and you get more confident with academic writing, it will also sort of start to fall into that flow as well. So that is most of what I wanted to cover here. The last thing I'll just quickly point out before we end is just where all of that information is again. I don't feel like you have to remember absolutely everything that I talked about because there is so much support and so many resources already available in the library. So that wellness library guide that I showed at the beginning is in library guides on the left-hand side. It's in the naturopathy guide, and it's found under wellness. All of that content is here, including that search strategy document, that database list, a little video on how to plan your search, sort of just like I've done, study skills guide, reflective writing, everything's in there, including book resources as well. And then that referencing guide, again, on the left-hand side, referencing. If you hit that one, it opens up into that full website with basically everything you could need. Also some information on paraphrasing as well. So if you aren't very confident with paraphrasing, it is something that is very essential to get your head around as a student, because again, it's showing that you're definitely not plagiarizing the content that you're using, and it's showing your markers and your lecturers that you can not only find the information, but understand it enough to write it in your own words, therefore learning it, which, like I said, is sort of the point. If there is anything in here that, so for example, like I have a book reference, there's usually, if anything's a little bit trickier, so for example, maybe you've got a book, but it's got an edition, or if it's translated, we have content that covers all of it, including a link to the physical, like big booklet referencing guide and the page that it corresponds to. So this is usually a good place to start. It gives you a really good snapshot. If you need a bit more information, we also have the referencing guide to fall back on as well. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now and take any questions